All right, sorry about that.
It's all right. So I just started recording. How about you?
Okay, just turned it on.
Okay. Shall we start?
Yep,
How do you want to start?
I'll open it up
Okay.
just because why not? Um, my name is Brian Barber. I am the attorney for the Skinner family, representing the incident from the park.
Okay. I'm Leo Thompson, and I represent the park from the perspective of the state.
Okay, Leo. Now, I'm here representing the family. We are looking for a settlement regarding the incident that occurred with the death of their two boys. First off, have you guys had a chance to look at the case notes? Do you have an offer in mind? Where were you guys starting at?
Well, yes, I've taken a look at the case notes and just want to extend our condolences. You know, this was a tragic event. It's tragic loss. I can't imagine the suffering that the Skinners have gone through. And the state certainly wants to help in any way we can. There are a number of, I'll say, unique facts that complicates the discussion. And I think it also creates some opportunities for some creative solutions that may be very useful to the Skinners.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we agree with that. We do love the park. They've been walking in the park pretty much every night after dinner for many years with their children.
Right.
And so they definitely don't want to inconvenience the park too much, but they do feel like compensation is owed. They would like to create some kind of memorial for their children within the park, and just kind of further the community with that.
Yeah, I think a memorial is a good idea. And unfortunately, the facts of the case, really the party at fault is the 19-year-old who was drunk, and also his friends who were joyriding with him and helped create the environment where this event happened. Now, notwithstanding that, and with due respect to Cheryl and Robert and their loss, they were in the park after it was closed. Their children were dressed in very dark clothing. There were no reflectors or lights on their bicycles. So they were really kind of taking some risks that one could say is contributory or almost in some respects borders on negligence, particularly being in the park after it's closed. But those things aside, I think the real culprits here are the boys, the 19-year-old and his friends who created that environment.
And we do agree. We do think there is some negligence on them, obviously, for their actions, which, I mean, right now we're looking for around $1 million for the Skinners to settle this. And that is taking into consideration that the park was negligent in the fact that they fired this person. They didn't bother to take the keys away from them. They had access to the car.
Right.
They were fired 2 weeks ago. During those 2 weeks, they never realized that the keys were missing, or if they did, they didn't bother to change the locks, knowing the keys were missing and that a drug abuser had taken them.
Yeah.
So there is definitely some negligence on the park in that aspect. Our insured's been walking the park pretty much every night with their children for a long time now. They've never ran into an issue with anybody at the park. Never security told them they can't be there, or that there's been any kind of issues with them doing so. They're pretty upstanding citizens. If they felt they were doing something wrong or illegal, they definitely would have stopped at that point. But again, there's been no communication from the park at all that they were doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
So $1 million is taken into that consideration, that we do feel the park was negligent, but the other party was obviously negligent as well. That would go towards the memorial for their children and also secure the Skinners' retirement funds as they get older.
Those are fair comments. Let me just explore a couple of ideas for you. From the park's perspective, clearly the Skinners are the victims here. They've suffered a tragic loss. The park has suffered somewhat in the sense of the reputation, the damage to the truck. The boys caused some damage when they broke in. That's trivial compared to the Skinners' loss. But nonetheless, the park is interested, the state is interested in going after the, I'll say the men that caused this event, and perhaps their families. There may be some liability there. Would you be interested in working with the state? For example, you would have lead counsel, but the state would be willing to contribute a lawyer to help you to see what you could get from those three individuals.
So you're looking at something towards like a joint and several contribution, possibly.
Yeah. As part of an overall settlement, the state would be interested in offering legal services, because we think the real culprits are, as I said, are those three young men.
How's this then? Because we really don't want to drag our clients through a trial that would put them face to face with their child as killers. That would just be too emotionally unstable for them and just be too heartbreaking, honestly. What we could do is, if you guys agree to the $1 million settlement, they will agree, however, to do anything necessary to help the park and the state recover funds from that party, whether it be like a written testimony or some kind of video conferencing or anything they can do where they're not looking at their child's killer face to face. They'd be more than willing to assist with that kind of recovery. So they do agree that that party is the negligent party,
Right.
along with the park.
Right. Let me ask a different line of questioning. In this tragic event, I think it would be difficult for the Skinners to go on as they have, perhaps even living in the same location. They probably have counseling that would be helpful to them. Some of those kinds of things. I'm just interested, do you know what their plans are? Because, for example, if they were interested in moving to sort of separate from the location of the event, maybe to another part of the state would be willing to help them, perhaps by giving them land, giving them money to relocate, and so on. Do you know what their interest would be?
That has not been discussed with my client, unfortunately, so I could not convey their desires in regards to those things. I do appreciate the state presenting those to us and those options. But right now, the only thing it looks like they are looking for is a monetary settlement.
Yeah. So the state, as you know, is kind of up against it relative to some of its fiscal requirements. We don't have a lot of flexibility to settle this from a monetary standpoint. We also believe that the liability of the state is relatively limited in this case. And we don't believe $1 million is an appropriate outcome. What I'm trying to do is package together a few different alternatives that might appeal to them. For example, you mentioned their interest in retirement. Perhaps if the state was to arrange to give them 5 or 10 acres in another part of the state, or even in this part if they want to stay here, where they could move, relocate, kind of start fresh, and break that emotional connection from the current location. It seems to me that would be useful to them. And if they didn't want that, they could just simply, I'll say, flip it and convert it into funds.
Okay. So this is obviously not something we've discussed with our clients and nothing they presented to us. It's kind of outside the box thinking. And we do appreciate the state coming to us with this information. So I would need to convey with my clients again, and
Right.
kind of, if you want to send over your proposal for what you guys are looking at, I can go over that with them, and then we can meet again and kind of go over those issues and see what they want to do. Now, does the state have any kind of monetary settlement at all to be included with any of the property they're offering, or anything along those lines, or we're looking at strictly just offering property or some kind of alternate settlement?
Well, we recognize that they've got significant loss. They've got disruptions in their income. They need to take time. They've got other.
Sorry.
How about a settlement?
I can't. Sorry, Leah, hold on one sec.
Okay.
Someone's at the door. That was highly unprofessional of me.
That's all right. So,
Unfortunately, I could not hear your last comments due to the noise in the background.
yeah. So what I was saying is the state's got limited ability to reach a large financial settlement, but if we could combine some things, we recognize that they've gone through a tragic loss and they've got some expenses and they need to take time off of work and so on. So what about a settlement of just say $300,000 plus a memorial, plus say 10 acres of land, state land that they could select somewhere in the state. And if they are interested in getting some legal support, if you're interested in some legal support, we could give you one of our lawyers, say for a year or so to support anything you want to pursue. So it's
put me out of a job?
No.
They already have legal counsel.
Would be subordinate to you. Just,
okay.
The state could leverage some of its resources in your favor to support you.
Okay. So right now the state's looking at around $300,000 plus possible property somewhere else in the state and some kind of legal or counseling support.
Yes.
Okay. Great. So like I said, let me talk to my clients because this is not what they've been thinking initially. See how they feel about it, and then we can reconvene, say, this time next week, and we'll discuss further options.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Does that work?
Yep.
All right. I'll have my people call your people.
Okay, great. So,
right, thank you.
Brian, does this constitute our negotiation for the class exercise?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. So I'm going to stop recording.